Good afternoon. Hi. Welcome. We're going to have a fun time talking about the zombie apocalypse. No, actually, it's a lot of talk about plants and how we might survive if there's a mass event of some type. So, my name's Mark Miller. I'm the Education and Exhibits Director at Pittsburgh Botanic Garden. Not Phipps, that's downtown near Pitt. We're south of the airport. Has anyone here been there? Oh yeah, several of you. Okay, great. I understand that a few are going on Saturday. Great. Hope you enjoy it. We're a young garden. It's only been open for 11 years. So it has a very interesting history. There was mining on the site, and we had to do a lot of land reclamation before we could ever open our doors as a botanic garden. So today, as I'm speaking, feel free to ask questions, and I'll feel free to say I don't know if I don't know. You know, but I'll try to answer any questions you might have. You ready? All right, here we go. And I just have to mention that your very own Owen Miller and I made a connection. His mother went to the same high school I did in this small town in Ohio, and his grandmother was my teacher. Isn't that funny? Yeah. Yeah, couldn't believe that. So he got his mom on the phone, and she knew a bunch of people I know, and it's a small world. All right. You know, before I define a zombie, Owen actually asked me a very good question, and that is, what is a botanical garden? So let me tell you about that. There are really three things that make a botanical garden. First of all, it has to be open to the public. Secondly, you have to have a collection of plants that are cataloged. So it's almost like a living museum collections. And thirdly, you have to offer educational programs to the public. So if you have those three things, then you can be a botanical garden. It's usually a lot more than that, but those are the three main things. Now, on to zombies. So really, they are a fictional undead being, and from everything I've seen in movies and TV, the way to kill them is you either burn them up or you cut off or blow up their heads. And I'm often asked, are there any plants that will ward off zombies? And as far as I know, no, there aren't. So that's pretty tough. There is actually a game you can play called Plants vs. Zombies. I'm not kidding. I wish I could run it on here. It's kind of funny. I have played it a few times. So let's be realistic. The chance of a zombie apocalypse is pretty close to zero, in my opinion. Maybe not yours. But there is a slightly larger chance that we could have a life-altering event happen to us. And would you be prepared? So for example, well, I'll come up with the example in a minute. Scientists have come up with a number of ways that they could see human civilization ending or being in great peril. A global pandemic. Well, what do you know about that? A global pandemic, huh? Well, yeah, we've had that. ecological collapse, nuclear war, a major asteroid, and climate change. We do have climate change too. But still, the chance of a mass extinction is close to zero. What's much more plausible is if we had a major disruption. So think about if we lost electricity. That's the example I like to use. If we lost electricity, there would be a lot of human beings who wouldn't know how to get along or survive. There really would. Less than 2% of US citizens live on the farm. In 1900, it was more like 65% of Americans lived on the farm. So we have become a more and more urbanized population. And that has, distanced people from growing things on their own. I'll bet a lot of you are good gardeners. We're of an age when we did still garden, but not all of your children and grandchildren are interested in that. I'm seeing a little bit of a resurgence. I'm lucky enough to have a daughter who is a really good gardener, but she lives in Australia. So there are different challenges down there. Instead of deer, they have kangaroos, bouncing around the garden. But the vast majority of us really would have to bone up on survival techniques. And one of the ways that you can do that is to familiarize yourself with foraging, wild edible plants, and some good, easy self-care. So that's what I'm going to talk about mostly today. So what is foraging? It's the acquisition of food by hunting, fishing, or gathering of plants, going and wandering around. Can you identify these plants? Yeah, it's blackberries in the middle. On the right, I call that henbit. Now, not everybody has the same common name for things.
The Creeping Charlie.
Creeping Charlie. There you go. And on the other side, I call that lamb's quarters, but some people call it something else. So the guiding principle of foraging is before you eat anything, please make sure that it's not poisonous. I mean, you don't want to go out that way. So how do we do that? Finding a mentor is really a great way to learn. You're gaining all that personal expertise when they've been out and they've done these things and they've eaten these plants and they know how to cook them or to make them into a tea. So having a mentor is really number one. Get a good book. There are some very good resources out there. At the end of this talk, I will have a list of some good resources that you could look into if you want to. But any good resource should have easy to identify photos or line drawings. I like photos better because color can sometimes be very important when you're identifying something. And it'll include info on where you find it, whether it's a forest plant or maybe it's in the middle of your sidewalk, and whether it's edible. And a lot of times they'll also talk to you about how to prepare it. Here are some resources for foraging, and there are some good ones. Have any of you heard of the black forager?
Yeah.
She's in Columbus, Ohio. Yay! I'm from what? She's really quite good if you go online. She's very expressive, very excited. Oh my gosh, the viburnums have berries today. And she'll show you how to use them, and it's pretty cool. She gets a lot of people excited about that. Another thing is knowing the bad actors. It's good to know those that are really quite dangerous. So let's look at these. The one in the middle, it's poison hemlock, not your state tree. That's Tsuga canadensis, and it gets 80 foot tall. This is poison hemlock. It gets about this tall, and it has creamy white flowers, and you see it along the railroad tracks, and it's really quite poisonous. The one on the left, poison ivy, toxicodendron, yes. Leaves of 3, leave it be. Whenever somebody gets into a debate about native versus non-native, I always say, well, poison ivy is native. Do you want that in your garden? And the one on the far right, nope, that's actually castor bean. So some of you may have had castor oil as a kid. My mom saved me from that. But what's really interesting is the Latin name is ricinus, and the seed of castor bean is where they get ricin poison, which is one of the most poisonous substances on earth. So if you grew castor bean, you got to be careful not to eat the seeds.
Is that a native plant?
No, it is not. It's not native, no.
So the bean is edible?
No. It's absolutely poisonous. But the oil around it is not poisonous, and it's used as kind of a purgative. Makes you get rid of whatever it is that.
Well, to squeeze the bean, press it?
I assume so. I'm not sure, but I think so. Yeah. Yeah, right. Here we are, common names, and again, what you call something I might not. So, and I used the whole hemlock example. You know, you actually can eat the tender tips of the state tree hemlock. You can make a tea out of it. It's not bad, and it's not bad for you. You want to use all of your senses. Don't limit yourself to just looking at something. A lot of poisonous plants will have an odd smell, believe it or not. Not always. Or they'll have an odd texture. So use all your senses to figure out what something is. In the example, on the right, that's gooseberry, right? On the left, that's deadly nightshade. So you can see they kind of look alike. If you're not really paying attention, you might eat the deadly nightshade, and you wouldn't want to do that. No. Learn habitats. Once you know where something grows, then you can pretty easily identify it. So I use the example of cattails. You're not going to find those on a high, dry slope. You're going to find them in a pond or a stream or somewhere where it's wet. So that's something that can help you identify plants. And learn companion plants, By that I mean many times things will grow next to each other. And that's the example I have here. So on the left is actually stinging nettle. And on the right is jewelweed. They often grow in the same spot. And what's really cool is jewelweed is kind of an antidote to stinging nettle. If you get something on your skin from the stinging nettle, if you squeeze the jewelweed onto it, it's actually kind of a salve or a balm. So I think that's kind of cool. And they grow in the same places. By the way, jewelweed is actually an impatiens. You know, impatiens that you plant around your house? This is a Native American cousin of that. which is pretty cool. It's also helpful to follow things through the seasons. First, as you see things go through the seasons, it helps you to absolutely identify what that is. But the second is to locate perennial plants that you want to harvest in the early spring. So you can put a little tag there or something to identify where it is. I'll give you an example of that, and that would be pokeweed, right? Pokeweed's all over the place, and they get big, and they have the flowers and the really dark purple berries, right? You don't want to eat that. But when they're young, the leaves are edible. I don't know if anybody remembers, but there was a song about it in the 60s, Poke Salad Annie. Gator got your granny. I don't know if you remember that, but yeah. So it's good to know where things are and what season it is and what season you can harvest safely. And then knowing which parts of the plant. So again, using that pokeweed example, you would eat the leaves, the young leaves, but you wouldn't eat the berries because that would make you sick, right? So, and elderberry, I put elderberry up here. That's one of my favorites. My grandma used to make elderberry pie. It was so good. And it's really good for you. But there are other parts of elderberry that are not good for you, and they'll make you sick. So you got to be careful about that. And you want to forage sustainably. If you take everything at one time, there's nothing for the future. You really don't want to take more than about 10% every time you're collecting. That way you're assuring that it'll still be there in the future when you need to go back and get some more. Yeah. And you want to just collect the part of the plant you're going to use, leave the rest. Avoid toxic areas. Now, if I know, okay, we've lost electricity. Oh, look, there's some plants there next to the dry cleaners. I don't think I'm going to do that. It just makes me nervous. Yeah. Or, oh, look, the sewage plant has some really nice, you just got to be careful about where you're foraging things. And knowing where the water source is also helps, because water, of course, can carry a lot of pathogens. And only forage plants that look healthy. If something's going off, I'm not going to want to eat that. Do get permission if we're not in complete chaos and everybody has a gun and get permission to forage. So things to avoid. This is very general. It's not completely 100% all the time. But generally, if something has milky or discolored sap, I'm probably going to avoid that. Spines, thorns, beans, bulbs, or seeds inside pods. That's only if you don't know what it is. I'm a big bean eater. I love beans. So, of course, if I know what it is, I'm going to eat it. But if something has a bitter or soapy taste, you might want to leave that alone. Things that look like parsley, parsnip, carrot, dill, that can be bad. Something with an almond scent, you know why? Cyanide. Cyanide smells like almond. Oh yeah. And grain heads that have sort of an odd color to them, and three-leaved growth pattern. That's mostly poison ivy, but there are a few other things with three-leaf growth pattern that you probably want to leave alone. So there are a lot of common plants to be found all around your landscape. I'm sure we could walk right out here in the lawn and find a whole bunch of stuff that you could eat. Now, would I do that? Would I dig it up and eat it? Probably not, because they use chemicals on your lawn here, I'll bet. I don't use any chemicals on mine. I'm not trying to be, holier than thou. I'm just saying, you gotta know whether an area has been treated or not. But if it hasn't, then there are a lot of things that you can dig up in your lawn and eat it. And number one, dandelion. How many here have heard of Doug Oster? A few of you. Doug loves dandelions. He comes to the garden every few months. We do a program together. We kid each other. I don't want dandelions in my landscape. He loves them. So, But speaking of a plant that is not only good for you, but every part of the plant is edible. I've had coffee substitute made from dandelion root, and it wasn't bad. The leaves can be delicious. They're actually, like in Italy, they'll grow certain types of dandelions just to get the greens. And that's considered kind of a la-di-da sediti salad there. No thanks. But it's a really good plant, and it would be your friend if you're out looking for edible wild plants. Burdock, they have the big leaves and they get kind of tall, and the seed heads get stuck on your dog's coat. The taproot of burdock is very edible and very good for you. Doesn't look great. You can make a soup out of it. It kind of looks like baby poop. But it throw a little garlic in there. It's delicious and it's very good for you. So who knew? Chickweed, it's edible and nutritious. It can be cooked as a spinach substitute, high in C, B, and A. And it's been used by indigenous people for a number of things over the centuries. So another one that is easy to find around here, and it's supposedly good for weight loss. Okay. Plantain, another easy one to find in your garden. I'll bet a lot of you have weeded them out of your beds. It's really well known around the world for medicine. And it's edible and it's good for you. Purslane, I like purslane. I've had it in a salad. It was very good. If you know portulaca, this is kind of like its weedy cousin. And you tend to see it in dry places, maybe around your sidewalk. It's very good. And again, it's very good for you and has been used medicinally for centuries. Chicory, this is the one that blooms blue, and you tend to see it along the highway, on the side of the road. Chicory, all parts of chicory are edible. Again, it has been used for medicine, and it's quite good. I think in New Orleans and some other French-speaking areas, they tend to use chicory in their coffee. It was actually my daughter lives on a small island in Australia called Phillip Island, and at one time their major industry was growing chicory. I'm like, really? So I guess it was used back in the old days for a number of things. That's an easy one. Clover, for all those who want perfect lawns, you won't see this in your lawn, but I don't care about a perfect lawn, and I have plenty of clover. It does have a lot of uses. It is edible, and it also is a good source of nectar for our pollinators, and it's a plant that will capture nitrogen out of the air and fix it into the soil. So it really helps your soil too. Yeah, it's a good plant. Cattails. Anybody with a pond, you're probably like, oh man, the cattails take over. And they can be aggressive. But they're used for so many things. They can be edible. They've been used for building materials, all sorts of things. Paper, biofuel. Curled or yellow dock. I see this in my garden pretty often. See, here's one that you want to catch when it's young to eat it, because once it gets older, it gets bitter. It's kind of like lettuce. If you let lettuce go to seed, it ends up being bitter. So you got to catch the leaves before it gets old. Something I found is that arugula does not change taste when you let it go to flower. So I let mine go to flower, and then it spreads its seeds around, and I continually have arugula in my garden, which is great. I like it. Not everybody does. Amaranth. This has a number of different common names, but it's an ancient grain, actually, and it was used by indigenous people long, long ago. Medicinally, it has a number of properties. So during the initial dark times of the apocalypse, you'll need to rely heavily on foraging and wild edible plants until you have time to start cultivating your crops, or maybe even finding some barnyard animals that are part of your holistic survival technique. Here's a pitch from the shameless promotion department. We do have a number of gardening classes at the Botanic Garden. So there are a number of edible flowers. You probably know most of these. So top right.
Nasty.
Nasturtium on the top right. Top left is rose hips, just like you said. You know, that is a terrific source of vitamin C. Very good for you. Bottom right, daylily. That's right. And bottom left, zucchini or squash blossoms. Delicious. The one in the middle, most people don't get. It looks like straw flower, but it's calendula, which is called pot marigold. That's actually all edible, that whole flower. Here's some others. I went, for the color thing. So top right, very good, borage. Borage is also very good at drawing good pollinators to your garden. It's a good plant to have. Top left, lavender. Bottom left, chives. Bottom right, yep, pansies, Johnny Jumpa, viola. Yep. And in the middle, some people call it anise hyssop. It's agastache. This one has a smell of the leaves like licorice. Terrific plant. Not only is it edible, but it really, really supports pollinators. I love that plant. It's a good one. And it's perennial, so it'll come back for you. Here's some native fruit-bearing trees on the right. Do you know that one? It's pawpaw. Pawpaw, yeah. I love pawpaw. It's such a cool plant. It has a lot of cousins that are tropical fruits, but it's the only one that'll survive the winter. Grows up into Canada. So it's a temperate fruit-bearing tree. The flowers come out in the spring and they smell bad. And that's because it's pollinated by flies. The flies think, oh, is something rotten over here? You know, and the reason we don't see pawpaws at the grocery store is the fact that they have no shelf life. You pick them, you got to eat them. They just don't stay. You can't put them on a shelf for any length of time. So that's why they're not more popular. But it's a really great fruit. If you've never tried it, I highly recommend it. Yeah. And on the left, serviceberry. Serviceberry is a wonderful native tree. It blooms in April. Then it gets the berries like late May, early June. Very delicious. Really, really yummy. But you got to get them before the birds do. And then it has excellent fall color. So to me, that's a great landscape plant. You're getting flower, fruit, fall color. And it's just a really good plant. It's also a host plant for several moth and butterfly species. So you're helping everybody by having serviceberry in your yard. I got to tell you a little story about how it got its name. It's native up and down the Appalachian Mountains. And back in the day, when somebody died in the winter, they weren't able to be buried because the ground was hard and frozen. So when this plant bloomed in the spring, it was a signal that the soil was loose enough that you could have services for everybody who had died over the winter. So they call it serviceberry. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Here's some shrubs that are native. On the right, it's elderberry. I love elderberry. And on the left, that's ribes. It's like currant or gooseberry, kind of. There's a bunch of them that are all related. But they're really nice plants, and they're good in the garden as well. Now, I can't say a lot about mushrooms because I'm not a mycologist, but I love mushrooms. I think they're fascinating, and we're very lucky that in this part of the country, we have the Western Pennsylvania Mushroom Club, and they are national leaders in mycology. I'm telling you, there's some really, really smart experts about mushrooms who live in this area. You can go through a whole college degree in this if you wanted to. If you ever get the chance to see a movie called Fantastic Fungi, I highly recommend it. Yeah, it's really great. I love mushrooms, but you got to know what you're doing. My grandpa knew about mushrooms, but he was kind of mean and he never taught me anything about them. He was an identical twin. We used to say, you know how you can tell Uncle Harold from Grandpa? He's even meaner. There's that movie. I was lucky enough to watch it with a nice dark beer. It was really good. Another thing I want to talk about is self-care. And a lot of times, after the apocalypse, you're not going to be able to find an ER very easily with no electricity. But there are some things you can do for self-care. I told Kathy earlier that I was a Peace Corps volunteer And they gave all of us this book, Where There Is No Doctor. And it was really, really helpful. I'm not saying there weren't doctors where we were all assigned, but sometimes it was hard to get there, or they might even be a day or two away. So it was a very good resource. Here are some that I like a lot. Back to Eden by Jethro Kloss. I believe he was from Kentucky, and it's just a really good reference. The Green Pharmacy, I was privileged enough to know Jim Duke. He was from the DC area. And his book is empirically based. It isn't anecdotal. It isn't, well, my great-grandma told me this. He looked at scientific studies and then had some very good, easy solutions for common problems that we all have. So that's a really good one. Prescription for Nutritional Healing by the Balches. That's also a very good book. And I personally liked Judith Sumner's book, American Household Botany, a History of Useful Plants. Like, for example, early settlers would plant tansy near their door because it repelled ants, and other things. So it repelled things coming into the cabin or the house. There are a number of them, so here are some more. There are a lot of very good books out there. We do have a couple of courses or programs we offer at the garden. They're taught by Brady Kreitzer. He's a local historian. He teaches at Robert Morris. And he's actually a neighbor of our garden. But he does several programs about shared herbalism, where indigenous Native American people were teaching early settlers about these things. What does this plant do, and how do we handle that? It's pretty interesting. Here's some more resources. Eating on the Run. It's kind of a fun book. Foraging feral food and medicinal plants. Do you know what that plant is in the circle? It's called trout lily. It's a spring ephemeral. It comes up and looks beautiful in the spring, and by July, it's kind of melted away again. Here's some others. So you can see there are some very good resources out there. If you're not familiar with permaculture, it's the thought that you can create a permanent agricultural system where you live, so that every part of your property provides you something, usually edible, but not always. It was started by someone in Australia. It's kind of interesting. I wouldn't say it started there. There were indigenous people doing this for centuries, you know. All right. I'm happy to take any questions that you might have. Yes.
The stuff you buy in the store, okay, the vitamins and all that has all the different plant. What's your opinion on that compared to just the stuff you get right out of your yard?
Well, that's a good question. Any doctor will tell you that the best way to health and healthy eating is to have a good balanced diet, and you're going to get all the vitamins and minerals you need from what you eat and drink if you do it right. But we've gotten away from, good, healthy fruits and vegetables, and we're eating a lot of processed food, which is not very good for you. So, do I take supplements? I do. I do. My doctor says, yeah, I don't know if it's doing you any good, but it isn't doing you any bad, right? I do try to figure out where they're sourcing things in their products. Certain brands are better than others. I just go to Costco. Yeah. Sure.
I found a big patch of stinging nettle behind our apartment buildings. And I learned to eat it, to
That's right.
cook it and make tea out of it.
Yep.
And you mentioned it as one of the no-nos because of the prickles. I mean, I do have to wear gloves and long sleeves so I don't get pricked, but it's very good.
You're right about that, and there are exceptions to every general rule. Stinging nettle is good. It makes a nice tea. Yeah, you're right. You know, going back to the question about supplements, for example, some people take echinacea. They'll say, oh, echinacea, it's good for your immune system. Yes and no. It should come from a specific species. It should be Echinacea angustifolia, and it should be from the root. So if you know, you know. So if I saw something that said Echinacea, I would find out whether it's Echinacea angustifolia and whether they harvested the root or not. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
My question was about making tea. So, for example, chamomile. If you grow chamomile flowers and you can just cut the flowers off and just let them dry out, is that all there is to that?
Pretty much. It's knowing when they're ready, number one, and number two, how to process things. But that's an easy one. It really is just harvesting and drying and then making the tea. Yeah. You know, the flowers from redbud is edible. Most people don't know that. And you can make that into a tea as well.
So like Eastern redbud.
Eastern redbud, Cyrus canadensis.
I
Yeah.
got a lot of those growing.
I'll bet you do. Yeah. They do well around here. Yeah.
Now, would you have to dry those flowers before you make a tea or just do it fresh?
You can either eat them fresh, the flowers, or you would dry them just as you say to make the tea. Yeah. Uh-huh. How about that?
Mark, did you ever? Okay, we go.
Ginseng grows in Ohio. Does it grow in Pennsylvania?
I believe so. It is up and down the Appalachian foothills. Wonderful plant. Was over harvested at one point. Yeah. If you get ginseng on your property, you're a lucky person. Yeah.
It's the Eastern redbud. Could you, when the
flowers are on the tree, could you just let them dry on and then when they're dry, then pick them?
I would not do that. I would pick them fresh.
We like to see the colors, you know, before. I could see Angie's out there picking the flower. Don't pick them inside of my ass.
You can pick the flowers that are on the main trunk. Have you ever noticed that redbud does that? It doesn't just flower out at the ends. It flowers all over. Like even on the main trunk, you'll get flowers. That's called cauliform. C-A-U-L, cauliform. There are only certain plants that do that. but Eastern redbud is one of them. Another one is chocolate. Chocolate will bloom on the trunk and you get the pods right there. Yeah. During Peace Corps, I got to do some research on chocolate. I love chocolate. Was there a question over there?
Mark, have you been to the Dandelion Festival in Ohio? It happens early May.
I have not.
Brickenbach Winery in May, they have a dandelion festival. You can get dandelion wine, dandelion gravy.
Where is that located?
It's at the Brickenbach Winery, and it usually happens early May. So like the first few days of May 5th, those weekends.
Do you have any idea where the Brickenbach winery is? I don't know.
Yeah, it's not too far from here. I think it's like a 45, 50 minute.
Like over toward Youngstown or something?
It's a dandelion festival. That'd be good.
Wouldn't that be good? Yeah.
Lots of dandelion things to eat.
Well, you know, there's also a Pawpaw Festival. That's in Albany, Ohio. It's near Athens. And that happens early September every year. Yes.
Speaking of dandelions, when I was a little girl, I used to go out in the woods with my grandmother, and we used to pick dandelions after dandelion, wild dandelions, and she would bring it home. She would boil it all down, freeze it, and then she would make pizza with that in the middle of it.
Really? Was your grandmother Italian?
Yes.
Yeah. The Italians love dandelions, I tell you what. Yeah. Huh. That's really interesting. It's all in perspective. I was once on a tour and there was a young Japanese woman who said, "What is the pretty yellow flower I see in everybody's lawn?" You know, and all the Americans said, "Oh, that's dandelion." Yes, sir.
How about the ramps from West Virginia?
Yeah.
Do they grow around here?
We have a few on our property at the garden. We don't tell people where they are. Yeah. Ramps are great. That's a type of onion, wild onion, and they're delicious. They have festivals about it down in West Virginia. Yeah.
Yeah, question. If somebody's on a diet that consists of these plants and they want to make sure they have a wide nutritional source, any thoughts on amino acids? I've heard of brewer's yeast as a supplement for people who are vegan.
Yes, that's right.
Any thoughts on expanding the nutrition beyond plants or anything related to that?
I shy away from anything that's extreme. I'm sorry. I don't mean to offend anybody. If you're vegan, good for you. I'm an omnivore. I'll eat anything except liver and cottage cheese. But, because I hate both of those things. But that's a good question. And there are some plants, believe it or not, that are high in certain amino acids, which is unusual. But you got to be careful to make sure that you do have a balanced diet. And brewer's yeast is something that I know vegans use for that. Yeah. Quinoa.
I think it's a complete protein.
There you go. Quinoa. And I like it. It's an ancient grain from the Andes Mountains. We get a lot of our common fruits and vegetables from South America. There's a really good book called Blue Corn and Square Tomatoes. And it talks about the origin of our most common fruits and vegetables. So, for example, peaches they think came from Persia, which is now Iran. And apples came from around Kazakhstan. And yeah, tomatoes are a South American Amazon basin kind of plant. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you.